the senator that he wants to be his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was one of the most anti-TikTok voices in Congress over the last couple of years. It would not sit well with a lot of elected Republicans if Trump reverses on the TikTok, forcing TikTok to be sold. But what are they gonna say about it publicly? Because everything else they've said over the last couple of months, or since the election, is that he was just elected with a mandate. We need to at least give him a chance.
Well, that was this morning's edition of Fox and Friends, where Fox News White House reporter Peter Doocy explained the imminent TikTok ban could drive a big wedge between Donald Trump and other Republicans, including his potential Secretary of State. Now, let's back up for a second and just do a little bit of a refresher on the issues with TikTok, the efforts to ban TikTok, and where Donald Trump specifically stands on this issue. So this year, Congress actually did pass a law that would force ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, to divest from the app by January 19th. Failure to do so would mean that TikTok is banned here in the United States. So Trump, as we all know, is set to assume office on January 20th and has publicly stated his opposition to a TikTok ban, despite the fact that previously he was very much in favor of a TikTok ban. Now we'll get to why he changed his mind in just a minute, but it has a lot to do with one of his big donors, and that's Jeffrey Yass. He's a billionaire, and a December regulatory filing showed that Yass's trading firm owned about 2% of Digital World Acquisition Corporation, which merged with Trump Media and Technology Group in March. So that stake of about 605,000 shares was worth about $22 million based on Digital World's last closing share price. He also has a massive stake in ByteDance. He don't want to ban TikTok. That might hurt his investment. So, plus it was reported in April that Yass is the largest individual donor to federal candidates this election cycle, with more than $46 million so far in contributions, according to data from the nonpartisan Open Secrets. Yass gave more than $15 million to the Club for Growth's super PAC months before the group announced it was supporting Donald Trump. So last night, Donald Trump actually did meet with the CEO for TikTok, gentleman by the name of Shou-Zi Chew. And earlier that day, TikTok's lawyers asked the Supreme Court to weigh in on this matter, to weigh in on the constitutionality of banning TikTok. Specifically, they requested that the justices temporarily block a ruling from the US Court of Appeals for the DC Circuit, which upheld the constitutional ban, or I'm sorry, congressional ban, I should say. So finding it consistent with the First Amendment because the judges said it does not target a specific message or point of view for censorship, but instead seeks to address the ability of a foreign adversary to manipulate content covertly. That's why the appeals court upheld the congressional ban. Now, in their filing to put that ruling on hold, TikTok's lawyers argue that the justices must step in to review a massive and unprecedented speech restriction that raises novel constitutional questions. The company asked the justices to act by January 6th to give app stores and web hosting services time to prepare to abide by the court's direction, and said there is a reasonable possibility that Trump will take a different approach to TikTok. So the Supreme Court now has the option of putting the ban on hold and reviewing TikTok's challenge to the ban. If they decline, the ban becomes law. And Trump could push Congress to repeal it or tell his attorney general not to enforce it.
Yeah, so it's shocking that these judges, and apparently leaning in the left-wing direction in these circuits, have ruled the way that they have, because their rulings are preposterous, and the Supreme Court should definitely overturn it. TikTok has a rock-solid case. They say if you're not allowed to target one company, right? What you have to do is you have to say that there's universal rules. So if the government wanted, they could pass universal rules that apply to all the social media companies on discovery, transparency, and privacy. And so that way they could address what they claim they're concerned about, and it would apply to TikTok and take care of the TikTok problem if you think there is a problem, but it would also apply to all the other social media companies. So that's obviously the correct way to do it that affects the First Amendment the least. And that is the standard that normally the courts use because they're weighing different interests. They're saying, is your interest in preventing this significant enough to outweigh the First Amendment concerns here? And there is massive First Amendment concerns here because they're shutting down the voices of literally millions of Americans who use TikTok, okay? It couldn't be a more core First Amendment issue. And this is cancel culture on steroids, canceling an entire generation of people speaking out on TikTok. Now let me tell you, this has nothing to do with Chinese ownership. Because like I just told you, they could do it so that it applies to all the social media companies. And is it better that private giant corporations have our information as opposed to the Chinese government?
I mean, according to our government, yes.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we don't mind if Meta has it, Google has it, all these other folks have it, and they use it in any way they like, but oh, we're so concerned about the Chinese.
And they sell it. They sell your data and your personal information. How do you think data brokers online have information about your home address, where you went to school, all this private information? Yeah, so it's totally disingenuous, can definitely be solved, but with a different law that's less invasive, right? So we're gonna tell you in a second what the TikTok ban's actually about, but I want to note here, look, Trump is right on this issue for all the wrong reasons. So there's no question that he changed his mind when Jeff Yazd gave him all that money. And that was a spectacular amount of money, 15 million in campaign contributions, 46 million to the Republicans overall, as Anna just explained to you. And then directly investing into Trump's company means money in Trump's pocket, right? So after that, Trump abruptly changed his position. Did he change his position because he rethought the TikTok ban? Absolutely not. He changed it 100% because of corruption and the money that he received. Having said that, he coincidentally happened to change it to the correct position. Banning it is even worse. And the reason why a lot of the corporate Republicans are opposing him is because they're getting paid by different entities to try to shut TikTok down. And one of them is the one that has the name that shall not be spoken, which is Israel. Yeah, when it comes to the concerns of foreign influence, it is fascinating how they pick winners and losers, right? Yeah, and here, they're not trying to shut down TikTok because of their concerns about China. They're trying to shut it down because of their concerns about Israel. Because and we're gonna prove it to you guys. This isn't just wild speculation. They've said it several times, including in that segment we showed you just a second ago. Okay, so why don't we actually do that right now? So here is Brian Kilmeade parroting an establishment talking point about how TikTok is a problem for a very specific reason.
Most young people are getting the news from TikTok. They have a great algorithm, they have a great business plan. But try to find some pro-Israel stories on the timeline, on the news feed for TikTok. Now, if the tariffs go against China, you watch slowly but surely a lot of the pro-tariff talk will take a lower profile to the pro-tariff talk, to the anti-tariff talk because it goes to China. Do you want China controlling the #1 news feed for the next generation of Americans?
Ain't nobody talking tariffs on TikTok. I'm just, come on.
So no, he's like, we can't let another country control what our kids are hearing because it might not help Israel. Okay, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? And guys, it's not about tariffs. It's hilarious that they're talking about tariffs. No, and Brian, it's not because China's cheating against Israel. It's because young people across the world are livid at what Israel's doing, which is killing 46,000 people, 16,000 children. We see it with our own eyes. All these horrible, horrible deaths, and people are outraged by it. They're like, shut them down. Shut them down, these young American kids. They shouldn't be allowed to speak against our beloved Israel. And you're worried that TikTok is controlled by a foreign government. No, it sounds like you're worried that the TikTok is not controlled by a foreign government.
Or more importantly, it seems like you're concerned with where the hearts and minds of TikTok users are on a very specific issue. You don't agree with where their hearts and minds are at, so you want to shut that platform down. And by the way, Kilmeade is far from the only person who gave the game away. Here's Mitt Romney.
some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcast. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard. Typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there and our point of view?
The Israelis killed a lot of innocent people, so that's why they're struggling with their PR. Cenk?
Yeah, so look guys, they're not even hiding it. The real reason they want to ban TikTok is to help Israel. They don't want our voices to go out to the world. It's a fight not against the Chinese government, but against the American people for rebelling against a foreign government named Israel.